A very good morning to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. This is Kenya and Africa at a glance, and on this morning show, we shall focus mainly on Kenya as there are very important events taking place today. As we know, the BBI case is set to take place at the courts today, and also yesterday, the second round of voter registration by the IEBC kicked off yesterday, also a very important event, but mainly we shall focus on that case of the BBI in the courts, and that will be our subject of discussion this morning. But first off, I'd like to bring us up to date with the latest by going through the newspapers and looking at the headlines this morning. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. And we start with the Star newspaper, where Kalonzo Musalia in war of words as division rocks One Kenya alliance. ANC troops say Musyoka is insincere, while Wiper lieutenants accuse Mudavadi of having one leg out of the door. That story is on page 4 and 5 on the Star newspaper. And then trials to start on herbs for COVID-19 treatment. You'll find that on page 3. In Mudavadi's son, how I survived a Dusit attack. That is on page 10 of the Star newspaper. And youth making fortune from growing new rice variety in Bura. You'll find that on page 22. And of course, the main pictorial on the Star newspaper this morning is that of at least 30 governors gang up against Ruto and back Raila. Yesterday we saw them coming together and declaring their support for the Azimio la Umoja led by opposition leader Raila Odinga. And then we go to the Daily Nation, where the main headline on the Daily Nation, Ruto Raila in fierce battle for governors. Show of might as 30 county chiefs throw their weight behind Odinga as ODM leader and deputy president eye the regional networks and financial muscle critical for oiling the curling campaigns. You'll find that on page 4 and 5 on the Daily Nation. At junior high, our officials reading from same script that is on the back page. And grandson wants Moi and his father's wealth. All right, you'll find that on page 7. And BBI protest, give us more time, AG tells Supreme Court. That is on page 6. And then high cost of violence in the Kerio Valley. Bushes and vandalized water pipes now dot the once vibrant scheme that was lashed with an assortment of food crops as bandits roam the fields. That is on page 10 on the Daily Nation. And then retailer appoints new law firm for dispute. That is the dispute on the Naivas supermarket. And then the main pictorial on the front page of the Daily Nation is the 70-kilometer traffic jam as border crisis persists. The traffic in Bungoma has stretched to Bungoma and Kakamega counties, I think on the border with Uganda. There has been some standoff for a couple of days now that now seems to be threatening, some businesses. And I think a lot of losses are being experienced right now. And then we turn our attention to the Standard newspaper. And the main headline on the Standard newspaper, battle for governors as 25 back Raila bid. County bosses say ODM leader is best bet to protect gains from devolution, hit out at Ruto for opposing 2010 referendum. I guess, it goes from the past is coming to haunt a deputy president, especially in regards to devolution and his stand during the 2010 promulgated constitution. That is on page 4. And second chance for voters, I think, is the main pictorial on the Standard newspaper. And the BBI appeal puts judges in spotlight. Judiciary had presented proposal to task force on law review. Now Supreme Court starts hearing case challenging the team's final report. That is on page 6 and 7 on the Standard newspaper. All set for Safari Classic rallies, 1,000 kilometers of fun. That is on page 3. And 46. And Kenya's wealthiest man is worth 89 billion Kenya shillings. That is on the business page on page 32. So in a nutshell, that is what we have on the local newspapers. Let me see, before we get into our conversation, if I can get the headlines from other papers from across the continent of Africa this morning, and then we'll just get into our discussion. And we start with the daily news from Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF to pick polls candidates amid fears this will heighten faction feuds. And then the Herald, vehicle number place distribution decentralized. And then we go to the New Vision, that is in Uganda. Government speaks out on Rwanda, talks a first lady in foreign press, and baby boom can spur industry take off. Okay. And yeah, that's what we have. And the Daily Monitor, fuel prices to stay high, say dealers. And I think that is in Uganda as well. And then the Citizen, how to address poor school performance. That is in Tanzania. And the Daily News from Zimbabwe, why it matters, Tanzania, Burundi, SGR. No, I think that is the one from Tanzania again. And the Guardian from Uganda and from Nigeria, override Buhari's veto or delete direct primary. PDP governors tell in ASS. And the Punch from Nigeria, APC governors propose February 26th, Musa Al-Makura lead in party chairs race. And of course, Nnamdi Kanu will be presented in court today. So maybe that is something I think that is something we shall look at later on at 11. We shall cover that, and that is what we have in the Kenyan leading newspapers, and also just a few from across the continent of Africa. Right now, I'm joined by Samuel Tawish, a journalist and our in-house analyst from Nairobi. Tawish, a very good morning to you. Nice to see you this morning.
Very good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu, at our communication headquarters. Good morning to our viewers watching this program in Kenya and the rest of the world.
Okay, very well. And we are also joined by Sharon Gitonga, a public relations expert, and also an in-house analyst. Sharon Gitonga, a very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and a very good morning to you from the headquarters, my colleague panelist Tawish, and to all our viewers watching us in Kenya, Africa, and the globe. Good morning.
All right, good morning to you. So today we'll not get too much into the conversation of One Kenya Alliance, and now it's Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka's team, who are now accusing each other of I don't know, betraying each other, and Kalonzo's team is accusing Mudavadi of having one foot in One Kenya Alliance and the other foot outside. I don't know to where, but I think from what we've been watching, perhaps we can tell, maybe where Mudavadi is headed, but we shall wait for that earth-shaking announcement that he said he will make by the end of this month. But we'll leave that for today and perhaps look at the voting, voters registration that started yesterday, and then we get into our topic of discussion, because I think this is very important. And so we shall look at this story yesterday. So judging from what perhaps happened last time, IEBC carried out this voter registration, Samuel Tawish, what do you think IEBC should do this time round differently to ensure that this, event or this exercise is efficient and is at least three-quarter successful?
Thank you so much, Miriam, and thank you for that question. Indeed, it is yet another phase of voter registration, and we expect that Kenyans in their numbers, those who are eligible really to register as voters, are going to come out and participate in this very, very important exercise. But Miriam, of course, we raised concern during the previous registration. That is the first phase of voter registration, where we didn't quite have a good number of Kenyans who are eligible to register as voters coming out to register. And so many factors really were at play, and one may argue that probably it's because of voter apathy. It is because of feeling that politicians are not doing as much as it was expected from the voters. And coupled with so many other reasons, perhaps is what informed this low voter registration. Going into this new second phase of voter registration, Miriam, I can quite assure you that IEBC needed to have taken this time when we completed the first phase of voter registration up to now, really to try and sensitize members of the public, to try and let them understand why it is important and crucial for them to go and register as voters, especially to participate in this coming August general election. But be that as it may, I mean, IEBC as well just went on a holiday They've just been waiting for this opportunity, which is here at long last. I do not expect that there's going to be anything different. Politicians equally haven't done as much in trying to persuade, in trying to sensitize members of the public. In as much as this is not solely the responsibilities of individual politicians or even political parties, this is a responsibility that is bestowed upon the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to be able to sensitize members of the public on the importance of registering as voters, and equally so going to vote when the election day comes. But I think IEBC has fallen short of expectation, and the politicians are trying as much, although we are not going to see much fruits coming in this new phase. They have said that they are targeting about 4.5 million, if I'm not very wrong. And by the time we are finishing up this second phase of voter registration, Miriam, I can assure you that we may not even be able to get to 2 million mark of new registered voters in this second voter registration. So it is something that is a bit delicate for that matter. I do not understand what needs really to be done for the members of the public really to find importance in going to register as voters. But we must then continually persuade those who haven't done that to go out and register as voters during this second and last phase of voter registration. I submit.
Okay, thank you, Tawish. As we speak right now, the BBI appeal hearing is ongoing there at the Supreme Court, and I've seen Martha Karua making her submissions there. And now we do have another lawyer, so I think we shall head on there, but later on. And so, Samuel Gitonga, the electoral agency has deployed more voter registration keys to colleges as part of its new strategy to net the targeted 4.5 million eligible voters. A good number of the targeted voters are college students and are currently in session away from the preferred polling station. So yesterday, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission rolled out the second and last phase of enhanced voter registration ahead of the August 9th general election. The exercise that will run until February 6th comes after last year's month-long enlisting only managed 1.5 million new voters out of the targeted 6 million. And I think it's a nice thing and to go and target these young people, especially from colleges. But we do know, say, here at the University of Nairobi, these students comes from across the country. So every time I've heard IEBC, that is where, of course, they're targeting other places, but this forms a huge bunch of where they think a lot of these young people have not been registered. And I agree. But somebody comes from Garissa, is right now in school. In August, there's a likelihood the schools will be closed and they would have traveled back to their villages or to their homes because maybe they don't have a residence here in Nairobi. So if you target them, you have them register at say Starehe constituency, where the University of Nairobi is, during voting time, do you think they even have the mind to feel, let me stay around and vote before I could go, during my recess, and then I can go back home?
Campaign. That is where they failed to put in structures and policies to see how they are going to work out even for the marginalized people who are at the marginalized areas. Yeah, because right now, as they say, when you fail to plan, you actually plan to fail. And I can quite guarantee to you that this kind of a campaign might not really come to fruition. One, they had some duties that were actually neglected when you talk about civic education, and also, and Tawish has talked about the need of having sensitization and public awareness, and that is where we are having a voter apathy, because especially the youths do not feel represented. They do not feel any motivation. They do not see the need as to why they should actually cast their votes. So that is number one, where I feel strongly they actually went wrong. And then maybe it could, yesterday I was watching a Monday report on Citizen, and one of the IEBC officials was saying that apparently they are now giving out flour and I think a bar soap to any person who goes out to cast their vote. And I think Kenyans have really sparked so much reactions online, some saying it is actually a bribery for them to actually go and vote. So I think there's something somewhere that never went right, and high chances are it is not actually going to go to fruition. When you look at the 4.5 million already, if you look at the statistics as at yesterday, there was quite an apathy, and this could also speak so much, even as the exercise is going on, and probably this is something that maybe politicians would take up instead of cruising up and about with, caravans, to even emphasize and sensitize on the importance of people casting their vote, because people do not even understand why they actually need to cast their vote. And so that now we can have more people coming up, because we keep on saying we want change, and unless we cast our vote, our vote is our voice. So maybe the politicians would work hand in hand now that the IEBC failed to do what they are tasked, so that we do not have these kind of voter apathy. Because at the end of the day, I think these kind of campaigns are also quite financially constraining. So maybe if instead of it actually going, instead of their efforts being futile, maybe the politicians could work hand in hand to to go out to see how we can go about this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Samuel, I will attempt to ask you the same question I asked Sharon. She answered it, but I don't think she answered exactly perhaps the question that I asked, but also she brought up very, very important information there. IBC is targeting colleges and universities. We have a lot of young people there that are not registered. I agree, but this students in these universities and these high learning institutions, majority of them are not from Nairobi. So are we registering them in the wrong polling stations, where perhaps during the voting they
and 12 respondents the same time
or Kisumu or Mombasa
as the other parties that you categorize,
where they are now going to school, and perhaps that might not translate to actually them going to vote, because they'll not be available near those voting stations? Or are we just registering voters for the sake of registering voters and just trying to achieve the target there for the IEBC?
Well, Miriam, I do not quite think that IEBC is not cognizant of the fact that these university or college students come from different parts of the country. And therefore, when they're going to register them, there will be a necessity really to capture each and every detail, including where they will be voting and where they come from. And I do not think it's just going to be a general kind of registration. Probably they're going to put into place measures to ensure they're going to capture those specific, very important details, including which polling stations or which areas these particular students really come from. Because it will be an exercise in futility, really, Miriam, to say you are registering voters in Nairobi, yet after that they will go and vote in their villages. You need to be a registered voter in a place that you reside, or in a place that you'll be able to avail yourself during the voting exercise. So I'm very quite sure that IEBC is cognizant of that reality, and they will be putting into place measures to ensure that there are going to be safeguards, and that students in colleges and universities and every other learning institution that are going to be registered in this second phase of voter registration are going to capture those specific details, so that they are not prejudiced when it comes to voting in August this year. Miriam, I submit.
All right, thank you so much. And I think at this point, I'd like us to go all the way to the Supreme Court, because I'd mentioned to you before that the BBI appeal hearing has already started, and I see Senior Counsel Hamino is giving his submissions. So I think I'll just take us right to the Supreme Court, and then we shall be back shortly and continue with our conversation. And remember, our topic of the day was in line with what is happening there at the Supreme Court on the BBI appeal hearing. So I'll see you in a bit. Don't go too far.
If taking the court's diary into account, there is any possibility of adding a little more time so that each party and the public out there are satisfied that we have had an opportunity to properly highlight what is before you, it could only be in the interest of justice. We are not disputing your order. We are merely requesting. We know that it is within your discretion, but the discretion can be exercised in a manner that enhances the democratic process and the judicial authority of this court. As a final court on this very important issue, which will determine the future of this country absolutely. This decision will determine whether this constitution can ever be amended, or it is so rigid that it can never be amended. And that will determine the future of the future Kenyans. I humbly request that we look at this thing once more. But if the court is not determined to accommodate the parties, then I would request that you concede to a donation of time which the AG has got from the Speaker of National Assembly and the Speaker of Senate, who have indicated that in view of the gravity of this matter, they would rather donate their 15 minutes each to the AG to enable the AG articulate his case fully. But I humbly request that if possible, we accommodate everybody so that we have a determination made on the spirit of a representation which has provided an opportunity to every party. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those submissions. You give us... Oh, there's someone else.
May I, my lady, Chief Justice, the honorable members of the court, my name is Githu Muigai. I appear for IEBC with my learned friend, Mr. Eric Gumbo, Mr. Justus Munyidhia, Mr. Moses Kipkoge, and Ms. Wamboi Muigai, and Mr. Delbert Ochola. We have only one submission, which is to associate with my learned friend, Mr. George Oraro, in the plea for a little bit more time in which the parties who are entitled to address you may address you. In our case, we consider that 45 minutes may not be sufficient to argue a matter that has very broad implications, which is the quorum and the function of IEBC. If we have looked at the record in the High Court and the record in the Court of Appeal, and it's quite clear that very major errors of law and fact were made precisely because time was not sufficiently allocated. That is our plea, my lady.
Your Lordship, my name is Wambulwa. Your Lordship, my name is Wambulwa. I appear for the Senate and the Speaker of the Senate, who are the 14th and the 16th respondents. Your Lordship, as you have been told by my learned senior, this Senate and the Speaker of the Senate, together with my colleague, Mr. Kuyon, representing the National Assembly, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, were the main respondents, together with the Attorney General at the High Court. Therefore, we find that the 15 minutes allocated to the parties might not be sufficient, as the respondents are addressing most of the issues raised. However, if the court, as requested maybe is constraint of time and might not be able to accede to the request, as was said on behalf of the Attorney General, we believe that the Speaker of the Senate, who is the 14th respondent, is allocated 15 minutes, and the Senate, who is the 16th respondent, is allocated 15 minutes. In that regard, we will be obliged to donate 10 minutes to the Attorney General, if the court may allow, so that we remain cumulatively with 20 minutes to highlight our issues. Thank you.
My lady, in the matter, my name is Kuyoni, and I represent the National Assembly and the Speaker of the National Assembly. The Speaker of the National Assembly is the 13th respondent, and the National Assembly is the 15th respondent. My lady, I also join my colleagues and echo the sentiments that they have raised, that the Speaker of the National Assembly and the National Assembly were main respondents in both the High Court and the Court of Appeal. And we will also be requesting the court, my lady, that if, as it considers the time request made by my learned seniors, it also considers adding us a few more minutes. My lord, I represent two parties, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the National Assembly, and we were allocated 15 minutes, I think, for each party. And if that is the case, my lady, and the court is unable to see to the request for more time, we will be donating 10 minutes of our time, and my lady will be remaining with 20 minutes to highlight on our issues. Thank you.
It may please the court, my name is James Orengo. I appear for the 18th respondent and the 21st respondent, together with my learned friends, Mr. Paul Mwangi, Professor Ben Sihanya, my learned friend, Mr. Jackson Awele, Mr. Arnold Ochieng Oginga, Ms. Winfred Makaba. From our point of view, we fully support the remarks made on behalf of the two appellants, namely the Attorney General and the IEBC. It is our view that this matter should be fully ventilated. The matter, although being heard and considered by the court, but there's a great deal of public interest in this matter. The Kenyan people would want to know the arguments and the positions of the various parties as ventilated before the court. They don't have the privilege of having the written submissions. And my lady and the court, this is probably one of the most important cases that would ever come before the Supreme Court on the Constitution. Secondly, my lady, we appear for the two respondents. We filed joint submissions. In the submissions, you'd find that in respect of each respondent, the matters we are dealing with in respect of both respondents, some of them are common and others are not common. But I'd urge you that if you had to give the Attorney General and the IBC a little bit more time, then on our part, an additional 5 minutes. Since we are appearing for two respondents, would be appreciated. Since if you look at our written submissions, we are almost dealing with all the issues that are being raised by the appellants. So we'd pray that you give us 5 additional minutes, and that will only be possible if the Honorable Attorney General and the IEBC are given a little bit more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice and Counsel. This is for Senior Counsel Martha Karua and Mr. Ochieng Dudley. From the record, your clients were admitted as amici curiae on the 21st of January 2021, so that you entered the proceedings at the first instance as amici curiae. At the Court of Appeal, you are partly named as respondents. In one appeal, you are named as amici curiae. The question that I'm asking myself is, when does amici mutate, stop being a friend of the court, and the court is the court, and then become a party, either as an appellant or as a respondent? So that the question we're asking ourselves is, if you entered the proceedings, the dispute at the High Court as amici curiae, why are you suddenly calling yourselves respondents? Is it enough that the appellants called you respondents? Do parties create positions for themselves by suing each other outside the framework of the dispute before the court? And therefore, why is it in error for us to have said that you are amici right from the beginning until this court? That is where the issue would arise. And I think the error is admitted by the court, that in the directions we should have indicated that you were joined as amici not at the Court of Appeal, as the directions would be saying, but at the High Court on the 21st of January 2021. So my question is, how do you mutate from a friend of the court to an adversary of one of the parties, as you're saying? That is all we're asking.
If I may, in the Court of Appeal, we were cited as respondents and accused of being partisan. We responded, therefore, as respondents and tackled the issues as respondents. The same before this court, and nobody challenged that. I remember in the Court of Appeal, it was put to us in the allocation of time, but we did tell the court, having been dragged to court as respondents, we deserve time to highlight and defend our position. In these proceedings, it's exactly the same. And before this court, we made an application for consolidation, which cannot be made by an amici. The court treated us as respondents. Can the court then turn us into amici? Because before this court, we now come to defend our position just like we defended it in the Court of Appeal. But our position also is that regarding every party before the court, including interested parties, this being the highest court, nobody should be shut out. Everybody should be given a hearing. But we are respondents, that's the way we are named, and respondents also, once heard by the court, we are not opposing any party. It is because our submissions appeared to agree with the submissions of one of the respondents that the AG and the others cited us as respondents in the Court of Appeal. The AG avoided us in this court, but we see his last submissions are mainly responding to our submissions. We deserve a hearing. And we are asking the question again, how does an interested party who then morphed into a respondent, just like us, get 45 minutes? And we don't mind her getting 45 minutes, but in contrast, we are shut out. Where is the equality before the law?
If I may also briefly respond to the question. We are victims of a situation which we have not created. The Court of Appeal Rules 2010 do not recognize amicus. I've appeared before you twice recently in the County Development Board's case, where a former amicus at the High Court was heard here as respondent. I also appeared before you in the Eric Gitari case, where a former amicus at the High Court ended up here as respondent. and was given audience. That is the situation with all amici admitted at the High Court currently. And the other thing is this court's rule on amicus is that an amicus who is slanted to one side will have their submissions disregarded. So Jack Mimali right now risks being excluded from the oral arguments, and when you come to his written submissions, you'll find them supporting one side of the case. He also risks being excluded at that level. That danger can only be mitigated by allowing him about 10 to 15 minutes to highlight what his case is about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will consider those submissions on the allocation of time, and we'll be back after 20 minutes to proceed.